Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Precursive Perspective. It's a Thursday in London. What else is happening? I've been building my son's climbing frame for his birthday tomorrow, which is yet to be finished because I've got to record a podcast with the wonderful Layla Selick. How are you? Great to
Hi,
see you.
Jonathan.
How are
Thank you so much
things?
for having me.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely. Absolutely. You have a wonderful backdrop there. Where is home for you? Where are you living
I'm
these days?
Canadian. Yes, I'm
Yeah.
Canadian, born and raised. So this is my home in Toronto, and we don't have an office, a formal office working space.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
my home has become my workspace, which I really love, actually.
Yeah, nice, nice. Well, it looks like lovely weather today. So tell our guests a little bit about, give us a bit of an introduction to yourself and a little bit about your role and the business that you're working for to begin with.
Absolutely, and I will tell you, I also was. Uh, I'm just fresh off a vacation, and I have a little story for you from my vacation, which
Excellent.
kind of gives you a little framing on a little bit on my life. So we were away. We went on a cruise, and on cruises, people like to socialize. They like to say hello and chat. And I was with my three children, and there was a woman chatting, wanting to say, where are you? People ask, where are you from? Is this your first cruise? And it was with my kids. We were getting ice cream, and she said to me, "Oh, like I see your kids are getting ice cream. Are your kids spoiled?" And I looked at her, and I'm
Wow.
like, and I was like, "Oh no, they just smell that way." And so
Nice.
I have three children under 10, and yeah, fresh back from vacation, which is really exciting.
Love
So
it. Love it. Wow,
career
she was direct, wasn't she?
people are interesting. Like the people you come across on these types of things are really from all walks of life, which is
Um,
enjoyable. It's a social
uh,
experience.
Amazing. You should have responded with, were you born an idiot or did you have to practice?
Yeah,
There's a more salty version of that, but we'll
totally.
tell that afterwards.
Totally. Um, yes. So career wise, I started my career actually working in finance, believe it or not, working
I
in
did not know
finance.
that.
And I knew that it wasn't my calling. It wasn't for me. I
Yeah.
actually have, I'm a born and raised singer and performer. So I
Okay.
always wanted to mix and the entertainment industry and business in some way. So I moved
Right.
to New York. I moved to New York and I did my MBA. I specialized in entertainment and media and technology. And from there, I worked in television for
Cool.
many years in New York City, and then transferred back to Canada, where I moved into tech a few years later. And I've
Cool.
been working in tech for the past 7 or 8 years. Uh, been a practitioner on the professional services side at another
Mhm.
Canadian tech company, and I currently am the VP of customer success at Productboard, which is a product for product teams, which sounds very meta. And we're based in Silicon Valley. We're about a 400-person organization,
Mhm.
and we're celebrating our ninth anniversary. So that's roughly the age. And I lead our strategic customer success, which is comprised of professional services and strategic success management, which takes care of our higher end ARR customers, which we'll chat about more.
Sounds good. Awesome. Love it. Well, listen, I think one of the things that, you and I got to know one another. One of the things I was interested in was a lot of your experiences in terms of in scaling, standing up initially and scaling the PS organization where you are, which I think is going to be very interesting for listeners. So it'd be great if you can share the journey of building PS, a product board. Where did you start? Where are you now? Et cetera, et cetera.
This date actually is so perfect. I didn't realize when we schedule it, because today marks 3 years for me to this
Okay,
day that I
there we
joined the
go.
company.
There
So
we go.
let me word paint for you, Jonathan. It's 2020. We are
Yeah.
just trying to navigate this new world of being locked down and seeing people's faces on screen. And I
Yeah,
started
yeah.
working on a product board, and the there was only a customer success organization. The customer
Right.
success organization had six folks on it, I think, just customer success managers who were doing, and I think we see this really frequently before we specialize, is they were doing everything from onboarding to renewal, retention.
Yep.
And when I started, the idea was, well, let's make a specialized function to take care of that onboarding and services experience.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I think this was such a critical time, and this is, I think, important context for our discussion, is up until that time in 2020, the product had been sold very much self-serve. It was very much a self-serve motion. And as such, we were working with more SMB customers. They were self-serving, they were self-onboarding. But at this time, there was also a drive to bring in sales-led experience. So to give you a picture, this was all happening in the organization together. The sales team was starting to go after larger deals, and we needed to give them an appropriate experience.
Yep.
So I hired, mostly in North America, solutions architects. And these were folks who had services backgrounds, had customer-facing onboarding roles in the past. And we decided to segment our customers to determine, okay, who do we want to work with? Like, who should we be providing this services experience to? That was our first choice that we had to make, a decision and analysis that we had to make. And you will probably chuckle, but I am pretty sure, and I have to go back and check this, I'm pretty sure we were working with every customer that spent more than like $6,000 in ARR with us, to give you an idea. The company had about 3,000 customers at the time.
Right.
And the experience that we provided was totally free. As long as you were spending let's call it $6,000 in ARR, you were assigned to a solutions architect. The solutions architect would provide roughly like 4 one-hour sessions, which actually is a really big investment in time to help them get on to the platform.
Yep. Okay.
And I would say that experience for the customers, they thought it was great. And the reason they thought it was great, because the industry and the category is very nascent. So they were really happy for any expertise. Like, it was their first time thinking about a mental model for their product organizations. And I mentioned before, the persona that we work with is product managers. So they really enjoyed the experience, but what we learned very quickly is we had to iterate. We had to iterate and change the experiences very, very quickly.
Okay, cool.
We moved from 4, 1-hour sessions that was fairly rigid to really understanding from our customers, what was the biggest pain for them? What was the biggest pain in their organization? What was their big priority? We wanted to make sure that time to value came as early as possible. And what each person considered value is different. So we invested more time up front to do that discovery, to say, here's what we think we need, the customer, and then the service that was provided really made sure that we hit on that first value very, very quickly in our first session together.
Yeah. Okay.
What was also happening at the time was sales were picking up very quickly. Like, the business would double that year in ARR.
Yeah.
So we also very quickly had to say, okay, we can't talk to every $6,000 customer. We actually moved the thresholds up, the tiers that we would service very rapidly in 2020.
Okay. And do you think like that tiering, like if you had your time over, would you have introduced that earlier?
I think the tiering was very, very generous when we first started, which was okay, because it afforded us a lot of learnings that we also could apply down market as well.
Yeah.
So it was a good investment at the time, but we made the decision to move the segments up very quickly. And I'm glad we didn't wait on that.
Yeah.
It also allowed us to scale like more responsibly the team as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think that learning motion is underappreciated when it comes to when you're like standing up a services organization, because it's like, you may not be charging.
Yeah.
You're certainly not profitable in terms of services GP. But the power of that, as you say, because many vendors, not all, but many vendors have got this breadth of customer base from SMB to enterprise, right? Or SMB to mid-market, or within mid-market. There's this range. And therefore, I think the move in services is always thinking about how you go up market and how you provide something that's more professional, more in keeping with what the market needs in enterprise space. But actually, the engineering of a self-serve or rapid onboarding motion for your smaller customers, right, is going to be best built on foundations kind of that where you learn, which is kind of what you described. So no, I think that's interesting. What were some of the kind of key learnings from this overall experience for you in terms of like standing up PS in the first year? What would you say the key learnings were?
We had a lot of residual effects on our learnings for other parts of the business. And I'll describe 3 or 4 of them. The first was at the same time, we were also starting to stand up the sales engineering motion.
Right.
And when we worked with customers new to the platform, we were really able to pick up on first value, time to value, and then and able to kind of help our sales demo and sales engineering experience really be redefined. That was one really wonderful benefit from it. Number 2 is we also started thinking about customer education at scale. So a lot of the content and philosophies and frameworks that we developed actually were able to be really efficiently translated into our self-serve academy as well. As we stopped servicing the lower end of the market, our teachings were able to be turned into a scaled onboarding, self-serve onboarding. The third was also, and I think one of the most profound learnings that we had, was it forced us, Jonathan, to create a very opinionated methodology on what good product management looked like. And that really helped us gain influence and credibility with our prospects. It also helped us craft how we told our story, how we positioned Productboard as a company.
Yeah.
And I think all of these are really critical factors in category creation. So the thought leadership that came from it, the learning and experience from this group of customers helps propel so many different functional areas, which when I reflect back on it, I feel that it's really quite profound, and I can see how we've been shaped from this.
Yeah, I mean, I profiled some of the stuff that you did in the research that I was doing for our last white paper, right, around packaging services and productizing services. And I think that like forcing yourself into figuring out what's our point of view, and the PS function, you know, in many ways is like the custodian of that point of view, because they're at the coalface with the customer, like trying to achieve it day in, day out. So they know it inside and out and back to front. And so, but I think what you guys were able to do was to harness that and turn it into this broader, you know, point of view, mission, product marketing, right? It became product marketing. So, and I think, again, you know, services and product need to be close together. They are in the best organizations. They're very close together. But it's that feedback mechanism from services into product marketing, which doesn't always exist. It's kind of one step away, right? It's into product, maybe. It's like, these are feature gaps that are missing, but it's like, actually, you know, it should be a source of, I think, of thought leadership, which is exactly what you guys did. So just to recap then, so initially onboarding was done by CS, right? Right. So it was done by CS, was housed in CS, stood up a PS function, began monetizing that, right? So I think you got to like circa $1 million in PS revenue, like in a reasonably quick period of time. Okay. And then so when you think about these offerings, like now, what are you guys offering at the moment? What types of services do you provide?
So I just expressed that at the beginning of the experience, we provided just like, I would call it onboarding. And then that evolution of that role, the solutions architect role, has moved from onboarding to what I would call architecting and prototyping.
Okay.
And the difference is we learned that we really needed to be prescriptive. We needed to be opinionated. Again, with category creation, the nascency of the market, and customers were not coming to us from an incumbent. They didn't have a mental model for what they wanted to see. So the fastest time to value, the fastest outcomes, we found the best long-term value extracted from a customer was when we were very prescriptive and opinionated. So we moved from that just more passive onboarding to very structured. We would often do a lot of discovery and go away and build a prototype of a product development lifecycle for a customer. Our hiring profile also changed from this too. We also focused on really hiring ex-product managers for the credibility, the expertise, the thought leadership. As in addition, in late 2020, as the sales-led motion ramped as well, and we were getting our first, second, third, fifth, 10th enterprise deal, we also identified the need for a type of role called engagement services. Our engagement manager worked with that high end of the enterprise so that they could focus on change management, governance, training and enablement, stakeholder mapping and analysis, and a lot of documentation. Again, when working with customers that are over a X number of scaled licenses that we're deploying, we really felt like there was a gap missing that on our customer side that we wanted to help fill and help educate on. That was engagement services. We now offer quite a bit more. We offer training, we offer technical API work, and it's grown quite a bit from there.
Yeah, no, interesting. So I think that it's interesting. I always find the language interesting, right? Because I think the language of the services that you provide really informs the direction that service is taking, right? So like if you call something a support offering or a managed service or an expert on demand, the connotations of it, both the customer perception of it and also the internal perception of it can be very different. So that idea of architecting and prototyping is interesting because it's the language of product management and the customer, which I'm guessing was deliberate. So this idea around the prescription, right? So being more prescriptive, what was driving that though from customers? Was it that, that there was projects that were taking too long, you weren't getting to value quickly enough, it was boiling the ocean, all of the above?
Exactly. It was based on feedback, our learnings and observation, the time it was taking, the complexities of use cases that we were seeing as well. All of those factored into it. And I think also like the personas that we were hiring, we really wanted to make that as valuable as possible for the customer. So let this PM come and observe how you're working today, and let me up level that and put it in a digital system of record for you. It was really impactful. So it was pretty organic. But we haven't reverted back from that. Our customers really love it.
Well, you were telling me like 75% of customers wanted more predictability and trust or visibility and trust in the product roadmap.
Exactly.
Is my memory correct? Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that, like that outcomes mapping exercise. Why was that a key element of like the iteration of these services offerings or the design of them?
So the roadmap, if you think about like developing a product and the life cycle, the roadmap is really like the final thing at the end of the circle before you start your research and your learnings and your feedback again. But interestingly, customers felt like they knew what they wanted to put on their roadmap. They just wanted a place to put it. They wanted to build that roadmap. It was sort of like the end of the process. But we started working with our customers saying, no, you need to first tell us how do you know what to build? Where's your feedback coming from? But they're like, no, we don't really have that set up in our organization. We're just we're being told what to build by our CPO, for example, or our sales team. We're either really like sales led, or our CPO just tells us what to build. We just want to put it on a roadmap. And that was a really important learning. Like the first value that the customer wants is not necessarily the right thing. So we had to find that balance, which getting them that outcome, that quick win, that outcome, relieve the pain that they had. Instead of forcing them to say, well, I really want you to do the right thing in product management. I want you to focus on your feedback. How do you know what your customers want?
Okay, interesting. I mean, I think there's a lot of chat about outcomes, and then it's like actually how do you turn that into a reality, right? Because I remember I was at a conference and I was facilitating this session, and everyone in the room, it was a bunch of VPs of PS and CS, and everyone in the room was talking about outcomes, outcomes, outcomes. And I said, well, if you go and ask 10 of your CSMs, like, what is the key outcome that customers are looking to achieve? I guarantee you get back 10 very, very different answers, and some of them are completely incorrect. And if you go to your PS organization, you probably get better answers, but again, similar things, right? And so there's this kind of like fallacy of like at a leadership level with banging on about this stuff. But it's like my point to the room, and people didn't like it, but I stand by it, was like, you can have this strategic vision, but if day to day people genuinely don't understand what is the key outcome that we're looking to drive for customers, and they can't articulate it clearly, and they really understand it, and they understand it in more earthy language, just like normal language, not management consultancy type speak. It's like, oh, we do X and our Y and our mission is this. It's like, we help our clients save money by doing ABC, or we help our customers make money by doing XYZ. And I think that outcomes piece is so important, but it can be so overcomplicated, right? And that's why I thought your approach was just like really elegant around, like, we're sort of over here in our maturity curve of thinking about the world of product and product management. Our customers are actually a bit behind the maturity curve. Let's help them get there first, and then we can, go forward from there. So I think it was just, like I said, I was really interested in it. Cool. All right. Go on.
Oh, I was going to add a point on that. Yeah. It's not just the services organization. Like, we need to be really elegant and coordinated across all of our go-to-market product. It's everyone.
Yeah.
So we have to be talking as a business. Like, does our positioning match our realities? Is our marketing appropriate? Is our leadership driving this outcome that we're observing too? Like, we had to be really coordinated as an organization to share those things and really empower the team as well, to say, we might have a gap here on how we're selling, talking, who we're searching for, like who's our ideal customer and what we're observing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because a couple of departments can be way ahead of the curve, can't they? They're like, our value is actually this. And everyone else is like, well, I thought it was this. And you're like, and it's quite scary because you're like, shit, we've got to bring quite a few departments and people up to speed on actually what we're talking about. But the value of that, of almost like level setting, is something that it resonates a lot, because it's something that we've gone through here. I think so. Just sort of last piece then that we were going to talk about. So, I guess I'm seeing the biggest shift that I've seen, right? Obviously, so we work in like two primary markets, right? I would say software and SaaS, and then professional services, specifically more like IT consulting, right? Those are our two core markets. Now, if I take the SaaS and software market as an example, if you'd have asked someone about, do you care about margin like 18 months ago, right, in some of these PS organizations, like project margin, they wouldn't have said no, as in I don't care, but they would say, maybe I'm not measured on it, or we don't care as much as you think we might. That's changed, like flipped 180 now. So operational excellence, cost management, margin, all of these things, people are they don't necessarily know what it is or how to measure it, but it's definitely risen to the top. So last section is really around like this kind of recession proof is maybe the wrong word, but like how would you guide others to think about PS during this sort of challenging economic climate?
I'm curious to also hear what your other leaders have shared. I'll share a couple of ideas with our listeners. And the first big change that we made late last year was the idea to combine professional services with our strategic success management.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And what that done was actually help us be quite more efficient with understanding the roles and responsibilities along the customer journey, because there could be many people, many account team members involved with working with a customer. And when we were on different teams, could be some natural friction. And the goals and measurement and KPI for those two organizations were different. But by bringing them all under one umbrella, we have shared KPIs together around retention.
Okay.
Because we know retention is going to be critical to all SaaS companies now.
Yep.
Like, we see a big change by having our services team rallied around the retention and lifetime value of the customer. We see different behaviors in them. We see them maybe over-serving, but because that's our metric, that's okay.
Yep.
With where we want to be in terms of that final outcome being retention. So focusing everyone around retention was a big change this year. I would also encourage product teams to focus around retention. Yep. I was just hosting a conference this week in Dallas, and one of our speakers shared, in order to listen to your customers better, to know what they want, you as a product team should be measured on retention. And I asked everybody after, I said, put show of hands. Who here is measured on retention and product? And like 2 hands went up in the whole crowd. So I hope that becomes a big shift this year in multiple business areas and functional areas. The second piece we've looked at is thinking about partners to help us scale and with efficiency as well.
Okay, cool, interesting. You want to? Well, so my thoughts are is like the best form of defense is offense. And I think that's the bit that for me is always, at least it's served us well, which is you can get bogged down in like customers saying, oh, well, this doesn't work as I want it to, or this isn't great. And you can just be like, oh, well, let's fix that. And you just go into this perpetual, like, solving this. And it's like actually coaching people to be like, okay, that's fine. We'll deal with that. What value are you getting right now? What would you say how would you articulate what the value of our solution is to you right now, or which part of it is indispensable for you? Because if the answer to that is, well, it's this, and this is indispensable, it's like, great. And if the answer to it is, well, not a lot, then you know you've got a serious mountain to climb. So I think that it's like looking holistically at the customer in that regard, because it's very easy to sort of fall into this reactive trap. And then I also think that like the role of managed offerings and managed services, or selling services to your customer to maximize value, people get a bit scared of that, where actually they should embrace it. Because what a lot of companies want to be able to do is have their teams work on high value work, right? And so if you can demonstrate to your client that thing that's inconvenient to you, we're best positioned to help you solve that in a more cost-effective way than you could, right? That's actually helping drive more value. It's also locking them in through some additional spend in a way. Not locking, locking in is probably the wrong. It's solidifying the relationship. So I think, offense and services wrappers combined is kind of how I think about some of the navigation of that. That rant over. What do you think?
I love how you articulated that and packaged that.
Cool. All right. Well, look, finally then, so I love me some metrics that matter, as you know. So what are some of the key KPIs, right, that you care about and that you measure?
Our scorecard includes a number of KPIs. The attach rate, of our sales motion, time to value, activation. We've also started adding metrics driven by the outcomes piece. So our dev integrations is a big piece in here. And because we also use the services motion as a sales play, so we have a selling motion, which is, if you're not ready to try our product, try our services. Try our services, and so we measure conversion, and it's a really great indicator of are we meeting our customers' objectives and providing with value. We also have, based on our hiring profiles and higher level company goals, we have some key OKRs around thought leadership. That's very important to me. I spoke about that a lot. We want people on our team writing and getting out and speaking, and and the integrations piece, so the connectedness and the efficiency within a customer's organization is also something that we're actively working on as a key OKR this quarter in particular.
Cool. Very good. Well, look, I'm going to summarize some of kind of the key things that I've taken away. Really appreciate you taking the time on a what's a sunny day after the school run, which is always a, you know, fun/stressful time of the day. But I think there's a few learnings, right? I think one is actually understanding that hiring profile, right, is really important. So potentially thinking about the domain experience, the industry experience that you're going to need to bring into as you're standing up or maturing a services organization. It definitely resonates. We're looking at that. We're going to have a lot more consultants probably sitting in our CS organization, really, or former consultants, I should say. I think the alignment with, you know, you talked a lot about the alignment with go-to-market. I mean, in the post-sale organization, thinking about it as a growth sale organization and having that services and CS really aligned. I think the baton passing is always really, you know, difficult or tricky sometimes. It's like, okay, well, if we sell a managed offering, who owns the renewal of that? Is that a PS guy? Is that a CS is that CSM? All of that. But I think fundamentally it's like, you've got to get to this, like, all of that is about driving faster time to value and reoccurring value moments for the client, right? And that's the key thing, is like a lot of people just one value and done. And it's like, you got to have reoccurring value in this market. So I think that was interesting. And I think, again, the examples of language around architecting and prototyping that is appropriate to your customer base. So if you're building services offerings, brand them in such a way or put them in the language of your customer and your industry as much as possible. Gearing people around retention. Yeah, it's 6 times as expensive to acquire new dollars than retain them. So no, loads of interesting things. Thank you. Did you enjoy it?
It's always fun to speak with you, first of all. I like, as someone who's building this out, I love having this connection with you and hearing your expertise. I love how you bring people together around services and make a lot of noise about it, because it's critical, and it's always so much fun to talk about you. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, you know, you are a founding member of the Services Delivery Alliance. So for anyone listening, if you go to our website now, you'll find it on the homepage. So we've built a community now. I think it's about 40 companies across the UK, EU, and US. Services leaders, heads of managed services, heads of CS, really, you know, people who are really focused on like leveraging a network to answer some of the key questions for their organization. It's kind of like having a third brain. It's been really interesting because basically everyone's trying to do something that's kind of been done before by somebody else in some flavor. So it's just like, it's just that reassuring of like, get it right second time, or learning from others who've done it before. So yeah, no, appreciate you the shout out of that. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you soon.
Happy birthday to your son. Thank you for having me. Take care.
Thank you. I've got to get back to building now.
Yes,
Build that
good
climbing
luck.
frame.
Bye.